fireside chat here on stage one here at Procurement and Supply Chain Live London 2024. I'm delighted to welcome to the stage Yash Chauhan, Global Head at NeoTangent. We're talking shaping the future of supply chains, insights from NeoTangent. A warm welcome for Yash, please.
Thank you.
Okay, one thing I often like to do at the start of these conversations, because we do have a bit more time to dig into things, is find out a bit more about your role and exactly what NeoTangent do, because there is so much to it. We had Jonathan Chen on stage earlier, so people have had a brief introduction, but lay it all out for me. Tell me a bit more about your role and what NeoTangent do.
Sure, certainly. Hi, my name is Yash Chauhan, and I'm the Global Head of NeoTangent. NeoTangent is the professional business services or business process management organization based out of the US and the different delivery centers out of the world. I mean, in China, Hong Kong, India, Bangladesh, and in the US as well. We are catering to the back office operations as well as the middle office operations. We specialize in the middle office operations, which is the end-to-end supply chain services of the of the enterprises. We started our operations about 20 years ago, and we started as the shared services center or the global business services of Li & Fung. Li & Fung is the world's largest, one of the largest trading and supply chain solutions organization into retail industry as well as into the CPG. So we are an offshoot of that. We started the middle office for them. And somewhere down the line, in about 2015, we became the GBS or Global Business Services, serving to their entire ecosystem. Now we are an independent organization, serving to the independent customers around the world.
So we're talking about the future of supply chain. So let's talk about trends. That seems to be a great place for us to start. For you, what trends are shaping global supply chains, and how exactly are NeoTangent preparing to cope and move with those trends?
Certainly. So when it comes to the trends, I mean, the point of reference is always COVID, actually, nowadays. So post-COVID era is something and I always say that we envisage that we will get the new normal, but what we got is something different. The economy is not doing that bad, but there are geopolitical impacts. There are, other impacts in the sense that from the technology side, generative AI impact. So all these things are impacting the supply chain. So that's one thing. From a NeoTangent perspective, because we cater to the fulfillment part of it. So there is sourcing, there is procurement or manufacturing, and post that we take care of the processes. Right from the master data management, track and trace, the whole transportation planning, logistics planning, sustainability, traceability, track and trace. Anyway, we talked about it, and the last mile delivery, warehousing, all these operations. So the change that we have been, experiencing with our customers is that the sourcing countries are increasing. Number of sourcing countries are increasing, and therefore the complexity of the shipments. Let's say, for example, let me take an example to illustrate this. The shipments are becoming more and more complicated. So it's not just one single routing. But it's a complex network of the different routings. That's number one. Number two, that there is an amount of resilience required. I mean, we had troubles in the Red Sea issue. So we had to respond back very quickly and therefore had to come up with the alternate solutions. And similar other factors which keep on popping up in that way. The other thing is on the traceability side, and sorry, my answer will be a little longer, but let me illustrate this with an example. UFLPA, is Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act, which was enacted by the United States 2 years ago. And so what happened was that in 2023, there were 6,000 odd shipments were blocked at the customs, border, and protection there, and because of the traceability issues. So, and the things, it was a new law, it was a new compliance requirement. So what we did is we helped our customers in terms of, collecting the evidence and really laying out the process of establishing the traceability evidences and getting the shipments cleared. But if you see from a macro perspective that almost 40% of the shipments were cleared, but then 60% of the shipments were stuck, and it happened in October, somewhere in October last year, which means most of the shipments were related to the Christmas time. And these things will keep on happening anyway, because in early part of this year, Europe also enacted the Child Labor Protection Act, and it will keep on coming. So this is one of the aspects which is emerging, and it will become more and more stringent. So how we are going to comply, how we are going to come up or build those aspects into our solution, I think that's going to be the key.
No, those are all absolutely key trends. Another area that we can't not talk about is technology and AI. I don't think there's been a single session that we've run today where it hasn't been mentioned in some shape or form. I know in my line of work, there's barely a day goes by when I don't get another press release with another AI-infused something that is meant to change the world. But for you, AI, blockchain before that, how do you feel that's changed supply chain management, and what are Neotangent doing in that area at the moment?
Yeah, so the latest disruption is from generative AI, so let me take a step back before I start talking about the middle office of the supply chain. Generative AI is impacting, or rather disrupting big time, the back office operations, which means your finance and accounting, your indirect transaction procurement, or your customer service. All these things are getting impacted by the generative AI. Now, as far as the middle office is concerned, definitely there are use cases. So nobody can claim that generative AI, I am the expert, I have figured out all. Actually, that is not the case, because the use cases are being built. So what we see is from Neotangent perspective that that use cases are being built for our customers. There are use cases in terms of the product designing. So the product designing, obviously, so there were applications, definitely, there still are applications in terms of the product designing. But with the aid of, with the deployment of the generative AI, the impact is quite big in the sense that you get more suggestions, the time gets cut, and you have more choices in that. So the whole process of the product design is getting expedited. Although there are use cases still in the initial stage, but what we have seen in Li & Fung and our customers, quite a big change. So that's one area. Production planning is another area wherein generative AI is getting deployed more and more. This is besides the whole area of the content part of it. I mean, you ask the question, you get it, you make the beautiful PPTs. I mean, that's the one big area which is anyway there. But what I'm talking about is more from the supply chain perspective. This is in addition to the technology platforms which are already available. So it's not something which is a standalone piece of technology which is coming up into play. But I think the key is to integrate with what we have in terms of our digital infrastructure. I think then only it will work. Otherwise, it cannot work on its own. Like a new thing that you deploy and solves all. It's not.
Another key discussion point that's come up repeatedly over the last 2 days is about resilience, as I'm sure you've heard on plenty of occasions. For you, Neotangent working in the business process management space very much, what strategies do you feel can help build more resilient and agile supply chains amid all the disruptions, some of which you've already mentioned on the stage here? How can you go about that, and how can business process management really help in that area?
Sure. So we are sort of, and I can say that with a little pride in that we are the front runners in terms of taking the middle office into the mainstream. Now, what happened was that that during COVID or before COVID, we used to have a world-class technology, right? I mean, still have, but we still had the problem on the supply chain. I mean, the first thing which got impacted was the supply chain only, and which means there is something which was missing, which is required to build the resilience part into the supply chain, and that is the middle office reshaping or transformation of the middle office itself. So traditionally, what happens is that, and I'll take an example of, say, retail industry. The merchandisers are more focused on their shipment, actually, what is happening to my shipment, rather than their product. I mean, this is the reality, right? So they are more paying attention to that. However, it should be the other way around. So similarly, the other fulfillment activities never got centralized or never got transformed in a very big way. So enterprises normally kept on handling those on their own, still are. But post-COVID, what happened is that there is a trend, and there are research results as well, from HFS research, that about 60% organizations are seriously thinking about centralizing their middle office activities or transforming their activities. As Neotangent, we started this about 20 years ago. So we are sort of taking a lead into that. There are organizations, there are competition, but it's only in bits and pieces. Somebody is handling transportation, maybe, the transportation companies. But I guess there is a need for a 4PL actually, which can really oversee the whole fulfillment part. And that's where we come into play. And this is the trend that we have been setting. So there are three aspects. One is the wisdom which got conjured from the back office, the back office activities which happened from the last 30 years. So Accenture, Genpact, Infosys, all these companies, or host of other companies. So there are established practices which really put up how to actually optimize the processes, how to set up, how to centralize. So those approaches and practices are already in place. So that's one. Second is the integration of technology, platforms, or AI, the right choice of the AI. And the third part is the domain. If we integrate it all three together, we can free up the fulfillment part of the supply chain. And really, the merchandisers can actually focus on their product. So that is the next wave which I foresee in this industry from the business process management perspective. Now, there is a caveat, definitely. This is different because traditionally, back office is a world of, and I'll be very upfront here, back office is a world of the CFO. However, the supply chain is the world of the COO's organization, wherein you have chief procurement officer or chief supply chain officers, that world. So there are diplomatic angles as well into it, but we can definitely adopt those practices here in this case. It will take some time, but I think there is a silver light in the dark cloud that the things are moving from a BPM standpoint.
No, that does make sense. One area you've touched on a few times, and I'd like to dig further into that, is you've obviously referred to the challenges of COVID and the pandemic and just how much everyone had to adopt. Everyone thought they had their strategies. Everyone thought they knew what they were doing. You get something like this, which completely changes the landscape, and everyone suddenly learns how quickly they can move. For you, how important is it to be able to adapt and have the technology to adapt? What's your perspective on that?
See, well, in a single line, and I think in some of the previous session, somebody talked about it, supply chain is no more an operational topic. It used to be an operational topic, but it's very much a boardroom discussion at this moment, which means something has happened, which really prompted the supply chain, supply chain world to be discussed at the strategic level, which means something has first, the situation has changed, and I think I talked about it already, from the geopolitical angle, from the regulatory angle, from more and more sustainability aspects which are coming into play. And somebody said it's not nice to have, it's must to have. So those aspects, those are necessitating the overall changes into the supply chain side of it. So that's what is the time, the need of the hour. But how to respond into that? The three factors come into play. The first is the visibility part of it. So during any of the change, any of the disruption, the expectations from the supply chain officers is to have the real-time visibility of their product or the shipment. That's the fact. They like it. I mean, they need it. Now, how are we going to respond back to? That is something which is definitely through the technology, through the domain, or through the data part of it. But that's the requirement. The second part is the resilience. Resilience comes after the visibility part. Resilience is, I think, with the world which is changing so fast, like Red Sea. Actually, I just mentioned. Resilience is something which is given actually into the overall supply chain, execution part of it. So it has to be built in. Now it is easy to say that, but from our neo-tangent perspective, that we have the domain, right? I mean, it's not like a very rule-based kind of a thing. It's you really need a domain. So what we are ready with our customers, actually, the industry that we serve to, that we are ready with the alternate solutions. Now, if there is a trouble in the Red Sea, then we had the alternate routing already ready. So the question was how agile we were to switch over to the different solutions. So apart from resilience, I would summarize that it's the visibility, resilience, as well as the agility. That three things are actually required for the modern supply chains.
I do want to go to the room shortly just for any questions, but there's a couple of things I do want to cover off. We've talked a lot about sort of the technology side of things and the global things which influence decision making. But let's talk about the people, because the people, as you were saying, there are absolutely crucial. From your perspective, how do we have people ready for the future of supply chains? What do we need? Is it skills? Is it training? Is it culture? Is it process? What are the key things that we need to make sure people are ready for the future of supply chains?
Sure. So here again it comes to the approach of the business process management. So the approach of business process management is to really look at the different activities and see it as each of the process. Now, one is domain, of course. I mean, domain definitely need to be taught to the people, actually. People need to learn it, the skill part. But not everything is something which is required to be learned over like 10 years or 15 years like that. So we can, the whole aspect is to demystify that knowledge which is there here over a period of time, with all due respect to the people, actually. But the approach is to demystify the knowledge, make the process simpler as possible. Because from a business process management perspective, there is definitely a crunch of the talent. You will never find the people who have the ready-made knowledge for one industry or a particular industry. It's not easy actually to get. That's number one. Number two, it's not easy to train them up. So which means we have to break down the different processes using the approach of business process management and using the technology, break down the domain so that it's easily trainable to the people. And that's what I say, that when I say the middle office transformation, this is what the middle office transformation is all about. This is about the people actually training them up, skilling them up, upskilling them. That's the whole process of the people management in the BPM industry. So that's how we are solving the issue, because simply we are one of the few companies who are serving to retail industry, CPG industry, and to the pharmaceutical to basically life sciences and pharma. But it's not easy for us to get the people who have the knowledge of, say, the transportation planning, or people who have the knowledge of the traceability aspects, because these are new. It's simply people are not there actually in the market. And so we need to, first we have created the whole set of documentation, training materials, framework assets, those kind of things. And then we hire the people and train them up into the system. That's how it works. that's the way we are solving the challenges of the people and talent.
Okay, yeah, so there's more questions I'd like to ask you, but I'm conscious I want to go to the room. We have one on the front row. That is keen. That is a keen first hand.
I'll save you your steps. You've already done it.
Here we go.
Thank you. Hi, Angie Hobson, SEAM Advisory, working at the intersection of environmental and social targets. Beginning of COVID, I was working for one of the largest luxury goods landowners in London, talking to a lot of CEOs, a lot of CFOs. At the time, people were nearshoring, onshoring. Designers were making collections from fabric scraps. I thought I would tell my grandchildren one day that I went to the last London Fashion Weeks ever, and yet we're kind of gone back to business as usual in terms of flying around and sourcing and everything. Is there anything that you as an organization have learned from that time, that even as the market, many of your clients have moved on and gone back to business, that you kind of maintain as key learnings during that time?
Yes. So, well, from our industry perspective, the first learning was how to work from home. And believe me, it was a big myth breaker. And so we used to think that that you have to come to the office, and it's very basic level I'm taking, but when it drills down to the kind of work that you have been doing, then it becomes more and more difficult, because there are data security issues, the information security issues. So how to resolve, that's the first thing. And it's not a small thing, because now as we plan the capacity of the people or facility, etc., that has become a big factor. So that's a big learning. And we learned that, yes, we can have the data security and information, data protection and information security figured out, even though the people are working from home, and technology is supporting that as well. That's one of the learning. The other learning is that we came to know the fault lines, if I may use the word, of the supply chain itself, actually. That everything was hunky-dory, everything was going, the shipments were going from China to the destination, but suddenly, there are different more sourcing countries, and then there are troubles in the water. So added to that, so we had to come up with the alternate routes, alternate planning. So that's another learning, that a degree of resilience actually which is required here. The third thing is, which we learned, and I talked about it, that the requirement of the customers. Now, customers could be our customers could be our chief supply chain officers, or the supply chain offices itself, and the end customers as well. They need the visibility almost like a real time, what happened to my product, or what happened to my shipment. So that's another thing, and it's not going away. So it's not one time, it's actually very much there. So that's another one. Last one is, and I'm going to short it down, there are many, but the whole sustainability, traceability part. So traceability, as I took the example of UFLPA, this is becoming more and more stringent actually in this case. And every time there is a struggle. So post-COVID, so you have to really figure it out, that how to clear or how to comply with those provisions, and every time it's a struggle. And I'm not trying to sell myself, but at least we have figured it out as a process, that, and all the more needs to really come up with the middle office concept, because then you know how to put that into a process or into the procedure to handle these aspects. So that's another learning that we have. These are some primary learnings from our perspective.
Okay, a beautifully phrased question, and broken down very well into those key learning opportunities. Well, I'm afraid we are out of time. Yash Chauhan, Global Head at NeoTangent. Really enjoyed your company this afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.